Hi everyone, I'm Julie from the Union Township branch of the Branch District Library, and this has been March, and March is Women's History Month. And so one of the things I thought I would share with you are a number of storybooks and books about women with strong female characters. Sometimes they're just strong characters because of their beliefs, their personalities, and just their standards. So I thought I would share a list of those. The list will be included and available for you if you'd like to order those books, maybe through the bookstores, maybe online. Some of them will be available through different digital formats. So let's get started. A lot of these are my favorites, so I have to admit that they are also not, a lot of them are not new, but really exciting books. So I'm going to start with some historical timeline ones, and one of the first is Writing Freedom by Pam Munoz-Ryan. This is about Charlotte Parkhurst, and she is actually considered the first woman, it's based on her story, probably the first woman to have voted in the United States. Next we have Girl in Blue by Anne Rinaldi. And this one is about a young lady who actually served during the Civil War as a young man, as a spy. And eventually she was a soldier. Then she became a spy as a young woman and served in that capacity during the Civil War. Everyone knows this one. Little House on the Prairie, Laura Ingalls Wilder. One of all of our favorites. We enjoy these books because they give us a taste of the prairie, what it was like to live on the prairie, and homestead and things like that during the late 1800s. This one's a personal favorite of mine. It's actually based out of Indiana, and it's a real old book, Girl of the Limberlost by Jean Stratton Porter. The story is actually based out of Rome City, which is in northern Indiana, not too far from here, and it's a great storybook about a girl and bugs, butterflies and moths and forests and lots of neat natural things like that. So if you're interested in that type of thing, this is a great storybook. It is an older book from the early 1900s, but it's a great story nonetheless. Ashes of Roses by M.J. Auch, or Mary Jane. This story is about the immigrant experience, also the 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which started the movement for workers' rights. Understood Betsy by Dorothy Canfield Fisher. Betsy was a little girl who was forced into a situation where she was on a farm where she was under the impression that it would be a very difficult life, and she came to become very strong and learned from that it was not what she thought or what she was led to believe. So a very interesting story about changes of ideas. Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, by Mildred D. Taylor. It's a story about Cassie Logan and her brothers and the difficulty after the Civil War. This was a very difficult time for them. There was still a lot of prejudices, a lot of people working against them. And it's a great book. It's a start of a trilogy. There are 3 books to it. Actually, there's a 4th one. There's a prequel that Mildred Taylor wrote later. And excellent series, excellent books. Here Down Yonder, Richard Peck. This is about a young lady who stays with her grandma, and you see so much of her grandma come out in her, and it's a fun story where Grandma Dowden becomes quite the character, is quite the character anyways, and just a very enjoyable storybook. Strawberry Girl by Lois Linsky. Lois Linsky wrote a series of books that were based on regional children childhood area, just different areas throughout the United States. And this was one of them. This is actually out of Florida, and the little girl and how her and her family work as migrant workers, and obviously pick strawberries. Penderwicks is just a fun story by Janie Birdsall. Fun story about 4 girls who are they're sisters, and they're a lot of fun, and they have such a great attitude and great outlook. They're just always exploring and enjoying things, and it is a take on an older style of writing, and personally that's what I really liked about it. But it's a very, very good story. Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. Jerry wrote this story kind of based on his wife, who is also a writer, and just Stargirl is one very unusual young girl. She is very independent and strong in her own thoughts and beliefs and what she's raised to know. This is an excellent story. Read the book. Please take time to read the book. Hope Was Here, Joan Bauer. And as you can see, what's really neat with this one is that in the background you can see the Twin Towers. I actually met Joan Bauer the year, like 6 months after September 11th incident, and she talked about what she saw and things like that. But her book, Hope, bases a lot on her name, and brings a lot of hope into the world through her name and her attitude. Now I'd like to do a few that are more international based. So we have Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. This one's out of Denmark, and it's during the time of the Nazi regime, and so a lot of dealing with the Jews being taken. So we have a family that is being hidden by this family, and they talk about how the girls react to what happens, and just the hope, the strength of the characters in the book, just show you how strong girls can be. Grace Lynn, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. Minley is looking to improve her life, to make her life better for her family, for her mom, for her dad, and she goes through these adventures. And what's really neat with the storybook is that there are a lot of the stories that Grace Lynn grew up with. The fairy tales and stories of her Chinese childhood are in there, and it's just really, really neat stories. She incorporates the actual stories into the story as storytellers step in. Really neat story. Some think that it's kind of based on the Wizard of Oz type of idea, but I just think it's a great book. So, Homeless Bird by Gloria Whelan. Gloria Whelan is a Michigan author, and this book is actually based out of India, where the young lady is forced to get married, and her husband dies, and she ends up in becoming obviously she's a widow, but she's also unwanted, and so her situation changes as she meets people, and her skills become her lifesaver. And so a really, really neat story about how someone's skills can actually save their lives. Esperanza Rising, another Pam Munoz Ryan. This one is based on Pam's grandmother, and this is a story of during the Great Depression. What is really neat about this one, I call it the backwards Cinderella story, because Esperanza was a princess, and tragedy forced her and her mother to become migrant workers. And so you learn about the differences in those lives through the story. Very well done and very realistic. And It's just a wonderful story. Another fantasy with Princess Academy by Shannon Hale, where a young lady is being considered for the queen, but she's a lowlander, and the mountain girls are usually selected for these, are going to be selected for these, and so it's a strong female character who Miri takes on the competition between the girls and works on her own feelings and strengths and becomes a strong young lady. Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This one's out of Yorkshire Moors, and the story is so charming. It's one of my favorite spring reads. That one and Girl of the Limberlost. I like to read them in the spring. It inspires me to get out in the garden, and even in the cold, and start scraping that dirt out and finding what's underneath there. And that's what Mary does. She finds a garden back behind the manor, and it becomes her place of respite. She hides there. She works on it, and it just becomes a special place for her. While we're with Frances, let's go with A Little Princess, Frances Hodgson Burnett. And this is also known as Sarah Crew. There's sometimes it's titled that way. And this is based out of London. The neat thing with these two books is that the illustrations are Tasha Tudor's. Again, a favorite, charming drawings and illustrations, and it really helps the story. Another kind of a backward Cinderella. She was the princess, and then she becomes penniless. A tragedy causes her to lose all her money. And so you see how Sarah grows, that she is still a little princess on the inside, whether or not she has the money to show it on the outside. Anne of Green Gables, L.M. Montgomery. She is based on Prince Edward Island, up in Canada. And Anne she is such a strong character. She has a belief in what she believes is right, whether it is or not. And she loves very strong, and she hates very strong, and her entire personality shows through the entire book. She's quite a character, and I would strongly encourage you to take the time to read this one. A few others I've got are nonfiction ones that are mostly biographies, and so one of them I have is Planting Stories, The Life of Librarian and Storyteller Pure Belfry. And I just thought it was a really neat idea, a neat story. The pictures are very, very pretty, and it just tells her story of how she developed from literally a shelfer in a library to one of the top, most influential librarians around. So Tall Within, and Gary D. Schmidt. This is Sojourner Truth, and this was a Michigan Notables Choice last year. So this book is very good. Talks a lot about, obviously, Sojourner, the art, the words. You just get an idea of what happened. Nature's Friend, Gwen Frostick. She is, if you've ever been up to Frederick Meyer Gardens, Gwen Frostick has, I believe they have some art and I believe in a garden, sculpture garden maybe, of her stuff. She's very influential in the state of Michigan as far as her art and her work. This was also a Michigan Notables book and an award winner, and again, very good stories, the pictures, just give you a good idea of Gwen's life. Bullseye, Annie Oakley. We all know about this one. This is really neat, Annie Oakley. This is really neat because this is a photobiography. So this goes on real pictures of things from Annie's life. The girl who drew butterflies, Moran. This is actually a story about a young lady. She was only about 13 to 16 years old when she did a lot of her work. She drew pictures of butterflies. Again, this is another one where the art is just phenomenal. But it shows a lot of how she did her art, pictures of what happened, how she would set them up, things like that. So to do her art, they say that actually her work influenced John Audubon's art. So it's an interesting fun. March of the Suffragettes. In this day and age when we are doing a lot more standing up and proclaiming, and some of these books are really good to show us reasons why why people marched, why people made proclamations and things like that. So this is another one where we got a strong female who is working towards voting rights. Fly Girls. Story about the women pilots who helped during the World War II, and it's just neat. There's some references to some of the famous female pilots, neat pictures, just great stories about WASP, the women's. I'm not going to remember what it's called. The women's part of the war movement, war effort, I should say. And last of all, Code Girls. We've heard a lot about the Navajo code talkers and the Native American code talkers, things like that. This is a story about women who did that type of thing as well during World War II. And again, pictures and information, a story about wax and neat stuff like that. So all of these books are available within our library system when we reopen, as well as, if they're not through us, then statewide as well. But they're also available through bookstores. Some of them may be available on Hoopla and Gutenberg Project, online resources. That way you can order them through bookstores, as I said before. Another idea is just plain check some of those bookshelves at home and see if some of these books are hidden on your bookshelves. You might want to check grandma's as well. All right, thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you again later. Bye.